And welcome to another Lakehead International Live. My name is Jordan. Welcome and for joining us. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you're joining from. I know everyone could be from around the world. It's morning time here in Thunder Bay, and today we're going to be doing Canadian immigration. We'll be chatting about study permits for new students. We're very excited. We have a special guest here, our in-house immigration advisor, Jennifer Hay. So just give me a few moments and we'll get into it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jordan. I am the International New and Social Media Officer. I help oversee live webinars, social media, the Global Ambassador Program, and a bit more. But I'll pass it over to Jennifer to do her introduction.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, everybody, and welcome today. My name is Jennifer Hay, and I will be your immigration advisor. So I know this is not the way we usually like to meet new students, but I just want to welcome you to the Lakehead family. Know that you have a bunch of advisors who are here to help and support you through your transition. We have lots of fun programming that's happening online, so please check it out when you can. But today, I'm here to talk to you about immigration. So I know it is very uncertain times right now with COVID-19 situations changing so rapidly around the world. Here in Ontario, a lot of things have opened up last week, so it's good to see that things are slowly trying to transition to what the new normal will look like. But I know with immigration, there's a ton of questions that will come up, and students are very uncertain about what to do in the weeks to come. So if it's okay with everyone, I'm just going to give a quick little overview and share some important information with you. I also have a nice online resource folder that I'll give you access to. And then we'll have lots of time to go through all your questions and everything. So the first thing I wanted to, oh, Jordan, can you allow for sharing?
For sure, just give me 1 second here. So things that, before I do that, maybe Jen, I'll cover things to remember throughout today's session. And then
Sure.
I'll have to end my share and I'll pass it over to you for that. So like I said, things to remember if you are looking to send us an email or communicate with us. You see a couple of emails on the screen there. So Jen's email is listed under the immigration tab. So immigration.intl@lakeheadu.ca. If you have general inquiries, so general inquiries about applying to Lakehead, general inquiries about program offerings, you can communicate directly with our department welcome@lakeheadu.ca. That is our email, and we'd be happy to either address the question or at least connect you with the proper team on campus and get you the best answer. I know many of you will have questions throughout today's session. If you're joining us over on Zoom, you can submit those questions using the Q&A function. If you're over on Facebook, you can comment on the video, or if you're watching this as a recording, you can certainly comment on the recording and we'll get that notification and get back to you in a timely manner. And last but not least, I always encourage our viewers to stay connected with us and follow us on social media. We have regular updates about future webinars, future live events, but we're also posting our regular posts, just getting to know Lakehead, learning more about Lakehead. And it gives you a great sneak peek into the campus life. So I certainly encourage you to follow us on any one of our channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. And those of you joining from China, we're also on Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. Without further ado though, Jen, I'll pass it over to you. You should have access now to share your screen.
Perfect, thank you, Jordan. Oh, good to know you guys are on all the platforms. It's nice to see. It's easy to connect with Lakehead, so people shouldn't forget.
Definitely, and that's kind of why we've started the live sessions every day so that we're available to help our students.
All right, sorry. The first page I want to go to is IRC See. So right now there are nice updates. They're working on the website all the time and providing quick up-to-date information. So in the chat box right now, I'm going to share this link with everybody or with the panel, and attendees. Here we go. So this is the IRCC link, and it has updated information. So right now I already am on the student and workers tab. So you can look through a lot of information. Some students have questions about when they can travel to Canada, what will be the protocol. It's important to be reading through this, reading through it. Obviously there is the isolation for 14 days. Students have asked me, can they do this when they arrive in Thunder Bay, or because you always will usually land in Toronto Pearson Airport first. So no, you will be able to connect on your flight to Thunder Bay, but you need to have an isolation plan to explain to the officer upon arrival. Lots of other good questions about not just traveling into Canada and who can come and so forth. Information about international students, talking about online classes. Students are concerned about postgraduate work permit eligibility. So students can be rest assured that immigration understands that COVID is out of your control, and in past situations where this has happened, they have been very supportive for students. They obviously have the same goal as you do, to succeed and be able to eventually arrive here on campus. But with classes being online, we want students to know that you can still study your online classes, and it's fine under your study permit and still be eligible for post-grad work permit. It is important to have that study permit approval when you're starting your classes if you want that time to be counted towards there. Lots of other good information about that, support for future applications, talking about workers as well that are coming into Canada, or if maybe you have children that will be coming on a visitor visa and so forth. So this information is always updated, so it's important, I think, to look through it. The second tab I'd like to show to you guys is actually CBSA. So CBSA is the Canada Border Agency. IRC See is Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada. So immigration is the application where you're applying for your study permit, and they're the ones approving you to come to Canada. And CBSA are the people who meet you when you arrived. So no matter if you land by or arrive through flight or land, the Canadian border officers will be there, and they are the ones who actually issue the permit and allow you entry into the country. So there is a lot of good information here about arriving in Canada for non-Canadians. So when you are ready to start looking at that, again, I would recommend that everybody takes a look at this too, CBSA. Especially as things are changing so quickly and rapidly, it's important to have updated information for whenever that time comes. So going back into the immigration page, students are asking now, what should I do about study permits? I know there's questions around biometric closures and so forth. But as soon as you get your letter of acceptance from Lakehead, and if you're accepting into the fall term, we recommend you start the study permit process right away. We have seen lots of delays throughout my years with immigration, and yes, there are delays right now with study permit processing, mostly with the passport collection and the biometric collection, with the visa centers being open or being very limited around the globe. Here in Canada, there is nowhere to collect biometrics, so a lot of our applications are still pending. However, we still recommend getting your application in in that process. You can still probably have a wait time of 8 weeks, so you want to get that application started, and then once the biometric centers are open, you're ready to go give biometrics, and hopefully we'll still have your approval for the fall. So right here on the main page of the IRCC website, this is the nice little checklist here. So I always want students to look at processing times. This gives you a good idea of when you should be submitting your work or study permit application from abroad. So right here, you'll have a drop-down menu. You're going to click temporary residency. You're going to say study permit from outside of Canada, and then you will pick the country that you are applying from. So say you're applying from India, you can quickly take a look here. It's going to tell you 11 weeks. So this does not include biometrics, of course. So 11 weeks, we're looking at, we should likely get your application in very soon. And by July, you want to allow enough time for you to get here. So then the next question is around biometrics. So right here, you can click on the biometric link and get an update of what visa centers are open and so forth. So biometrics is where they collect your fingerprints and eye scan. And in 2019, IRCC has expanded their collection to almost all countries outside of the United States. So if you have already given fingerprints to come to Canada on a visitor visa in the last 10 years, you do not have to do this again. And it will be nice because then you can get your application submitted and hopefully approved even quicker. But if you have not given biometrics, it's going to say this. You're going to apply for a study permit. Right, sorry. I didn't give biometrics, sorry. Say I'm applying from India, going to go for a study permit. You have to give biometrics. So then you can click down here on where you should give your biometrics. And at the bottom, you can actually search the visa center. So I'm in India, I want to know, as you can see, a lot of them are closed right now. So that's where the wait time is. You cannot do your application in one country and then go to another country to give biometrics. You just have to wait for the visa center to open. But even though that the centers are closed, I'm still recommending that you start that online application for your study permit. So I'm going to keep going there. So then back into that application on the main page. When you're ready to apply, you're going to sign in or create an account. So through here, you'll likely have a GC key, as many of you are abroad and will not have a Canadian bank account yet, but you will sign in for a GC, Government of Canada login. So once you start your app or open your account, sorry, my page is a little bit slow here. You will see that you go through a few processes to make yourself a username, password, and some recovery questions. So I always urge students to please keep this login safe, as you will have to readily be able to access this account. You don't want to guess the password too many times, or the account can be locked and it can cause you some problems to access your updates. So please pick a good login that's going to work for you, and keep that information handy but also secure. And then you'll be able to go into the application, answer some questions about yourself, and then start your application to come to Canada. There are some documents that are required for the study permit. Of course, the letter of acceptance being the first one, a copy of your passport. You also need proof of finance. And then there could be other documents depending on what country you're from, such as family information or a request for a medical. I have a nice folder here called the LUI Immigration Resource Center. I have created how-to videos on how to apply for co-op work permits, your postgraduate work permit, study permit, mostly extensions. But I do have a nice handout in here for new admissions. So lots of students will ask me right away, how do I get started? So in this handout, it gives you the link to go create that account, telling you about what documents you will need to have in advance, talking about the visa part of it, or the ETA. So you have a permit which allows you to study, and then also a travel visa sticker in the passport which allows you to enter the country. And then there's other considerations that you must look into. For example, conditional offers. Most people are waiting to meet conditions to apply for their study permit. However, with these long wait times, I'm recommending that even if you have a conditional offer, you should start the study permit process. You can always include a letter of explanation stating that you are finishing your high school or you're waiting to complete your IELTS exam, but you want to get your application in because of processing times to allow enough time for it to be approved. And then once you have that piece of document that meets conditions, so you do the English exam or you finish your high school or you give that 90% in your math, you can go back to IRCC and update your file. You can submit an incomplete application right now to IRCC just to get things started, and then submit any additional documents once they become available. You know that IRCC is processing in 11 weeks. So even if you know it's going to be 4 weeks before you finish your school, you can submit your application today, and in 4 weeks, send in that updated document to them. And we do that through an IRCC web form right on the main page of their website. I've already talked about biometrics, but I also want to remind students about passport expiry. No permits can be issued past the expiry date of your passport. So we always tell you to look at the passport. If you're in a 4-year program, you want to make sure you have 4 or 5 years on your passport before you even start the study permit process. If your passport is expiring in the next few years, you will have to renew your passport and then apply for another study permit and pay the fee again. So we always tell students, if you're within 6 or 7 months of expiry, you may want to renew your passport before you even start this process. So co-ops and internships is another question that comes up. I know with undergraduate students, sometimes it's mentioned on your letter of acceptance. So you can use this letter of acceptance as a second upload as proof that you have work as part of your studies. But for most of our programs, you don't get accepted to co-op until after your first year. So you don't have to really worry about this with your initial study permit application. Once you're accepted into co-op, you will receive a letter approving you, and then you will come meet with me while we're on campus or attend one of the workshops, or use that resource folder if needed to talk about, to apply for the co-op permit separately. There is no fee for this, so it can be done in the future. So please don't stress out if you don't have proof of co-op at the time of admission. So the program end dates can kind of be confusing for students, and we want to ensure your study permit is issued to the right length of time to avoid you having to extend the permit in the future. So if you are in a one-year master's program, it's 3 terms usually, you would use an August 31st end date. So starting in September, finishing in August. If you're in a 2-year master program, you would do the same thing, obviously putting 2 years in. So just make sure that our end dates usually for our master's programs are usually in August, and then the degree programs are in April. And you will put the end date on your application form. So it's good to make sure you use these dates. Immigration usually automatically gives you a few extra months so that you have time to prepare for your work permit application. Dependents, so coming with family members. Canada loves when you bring your family together, so please note that if you come here and are approved for a study permit, your children and spouse are eligible automatically to come and accompany you in Canada. Your spouse, so husband or wife, would be eligible for an open work permit, which means that it is not tied to any employer. And there's no job offer required. It is actually approved based on the fact that you are studying there, and it would be issued for the same length of time. For your children, they can either have study permits or visitor visas, just depending on their age, and they are able to attend the elementary and high schools at no cost while you're studying at Lakehead. So if you'd like to bring your family, please visit this link here. Again, I'm going to share this whole drive with you before I'm done, so you can learn just what documents you want to include. In the application questions, it will ask you, do you want to add any family members? And then you can add them directly in your application. Or some people would like to do their own study permit separately, and then once it's approved, then you can add your family members later on. Again, we want to be mindful of processing times. We want to make sure you do have study permit approval within the September for starting classes. And then once your application is approved, you will receive a notification again to send your passport to the visa center, and they will give you the visa stamping. So when you first come to Canada, the study permit and the visa is all together in one application. And that is my quick spill of frequently asked questions for students. You guys will love all the little videos because I actually go word by word through each of the forms and so forth here. Again, a lot of them are for once you're here on campus, but I know lots of students have questions about permanent residency or around the postgraduate work permit once you graduate. So I think there's no harm in being extra cautious and looking at it ahead of time. So there's my resource center. And I think this is probably a good time to pause and to answer some of the questions that are coming in here.
For sure, yeah. So just give me 1 second here, Jen. Of course, we've had quite a few questions come in the meantime. And so I'll start working through the first couple and passing them over to you to answer them, of course. The first question that we received is regarding bringing your family, so bringing a spouse and a child. The question is, I am in the process of requesting study permit and visa for myself. I will come along with my husband and son. Should I request him with an open work visa? And should my son get a study visa, who he is currently in school?
Okay, so yes, as mentioned, I would say open work permit is the best option, especially for families who are looking for permanent residency. It's a great opportunity for your spouse to gain Canadian work experience while you study. So it's a great program that IRC See offers. Why would you not want to have an open work permit while you're here? So yes, you would invite or add your husband and say that you're applying for an open work permit. So no, you'll see there's information about employers. So you just leave all that blank on the application form, and feel free to book a one-on-one if you want. I know that family applications can be a little bit complicated, so I'm happy to check over your questions if you want, just to make sure you didn't miss anything. And then for your child, it really depends on the age. A lot of people like the visa. It's only at $100, and it's issued for usually the length of the passport. So it's a longer visa for the child. So some families will pick that. However, if they are high school or older, they do need a study permit. So just depending on the age, if they're like 12 or older, I would say definitely apply for a study permit for your child.
Awesome. And then the next question we have is with regards to deferrals, and I know that's more in the admissions realm. But this question specifically, just give me a second to read over it, and you can do the same with me.
Mhm.
So the student would like to know, for completing the biometrics, they're currently in Iran where all the visa offices are closed, and they would be maybe interested in going to another country to do those biometrics. Is that a possibility for them? Could you
So
speak to
IRCC
that?
really doesn't like that. Like I know some visa centers are outside, like they don't have them specifically in their country, so you have to travel. If I were you, I would definitely contact that back first to make sure that it would be okay, because IRCC has given strict instruction that if you do your application in Canada, you cannot go abroad to do your biometrics. So I would assume it's the same for all countries. So that would be something you'd want to call that visa center directly and just say, hey, I've submitted my application. This is my biometric request. Can I come there to do it? But I know they don't really want people traveling in and out of countries for a biometric right now. They kind of want everyone to just hold put. And hopefully, you know, by some miracle, IRCC will have a plan or maybe give further extensions and so forth. But please note that nobody will ever have a refusal done on their application because of the biometric centers being closed. This is out of your control, and IRCC does recognize that.
So, and I think that's a really important note, because many students have clarified that they've delayed their application for their study permit simply because they know that they're not accepting biometrics right now, or they're not able to complete them right now. And something that we've always reiterated, and something that we always encourage students, is to continue your application. Applying through the IRCC website is through online. It can be done at the comfort of your own home. And like Jen said, the biometrics will not reflect or will not have a refusal just because you aren't able to complete them. Of course, they're very knowledgeable about the current situation, the fact that students are not able to complete those biometrics right now.
Yes, I can't stress that enough. Like, for example, we have like 250 students who just graduated and applied for postgraduate work permits. All the students from India and China arrived before 2019 and need biometrics. So they're not going to wait to apply for a postgraduate work permit. They're going to apply right away. And in fact, you can't even do biometrics until after you've submitted your application and get that request. It usually takes about a week to come. So definitely, and who knows what IRCC will issue in the months to come. If the centers don't open, they're going to have to find some kind of workaround. So I think it's best to be in that pool waiting for biometrics.
Mm-hmm.
So please go ahead and start your application.
One thing I always like to do is kind of picture it as when you submit your application for a visa, you're on a list, and they will answer that list, and they will start processing it based on the priority of when you submitted. So well, if they stopped processing requests maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and then they catch up at the end of this month, they'll start at the very beginning of the month again, and they'll start going through that list. So the sooner you submit it, the sooner your application will be with a visa officer who can then review the files. And I mean, I know we have quite a few questions coming through regarding missing documents, what are common mistakes, that sort of stuff. So we'll speak to that in just a minute. But another question we have from Victoria is, if my passport expires in February 2021 and I cannot get a new one because of passport offices being closed in their home country, can she still apply for a visa?
Yes, Victoria, you can still apply, and your passport is still it's over 6 months. So some countries are very specific that you cannot renew it earlier. And I do understand the impact of COVID and even the embassies here in Canada for processing. So I would still say go ahead and apply. And then if you get a new passport before your study permit is approved, you can just update IRCC and say, look, now I have a new passport. Please issue the study permit according to my new passport for a longer time. But if they do approve the study permit, it would be issued till February 2021. And then you get to come see me when you have a new passport, and we will apply for an extension for the rest of your studies at Lakehead.
Awesome. So the next question we have is how to go about getting a study permit with results being delayed. So final examination results, final high school grades being delayed. I know that's more so an admissions questions, and I think it probably speaks to the conditional and unconditional offers. So could you kind of reiterate that, Jen?
Yeah, so again, I'm still going to encourage people to apply for study permits as soon as they're accepted to Lakehead. Again, as Jordan said, the list kind of idea, like I would think that if you apply for a study permit within your processing times and the biometrics still are not completed, IRCC must take that into effect. But if it's August 30th and you're like, oh, I didn't apply for my study permit because there was no biometrics, like, are you going to help me speed up my process or help me get to Canada? They probably won't have any leniency for you. But the fact that you did your due diligence, you applied and gave yourself, enough time for processing, they will definitely be taking these things into consideration if there's no solution for biometrics. So again, we still want you to apply. And if you don't have the GIC or your results from your high school, I would still say submit your application. When you upload your documents, there's a folder called client information, and it's just an extra upload. So this is where you want to explain anything to immigration. Lots of people do what's called a statement of purpose, an SOP, and you're explaining, this is my past education, this is my current education, this is how it makes sense and why I'm doing it, and this shows that I will return back to my home country after my stay is over. And these things are nice little stories that help immigration make sense about your application. So in this, you would state, I have a conditional offer to Lakehead University. I have not got my documents or my final transcripts to upload and send to them, which have to be done by mail. I'm submitting my application today because I want to allow 11 weeks for processing. And once I have that updated document, I will be sending in a web form to update my file. And what I say web form, it's called the IRCC web form. It's in my resource folder there as well. And it's just a quick little email submission. So it's like an email form on their website, and you will put your application number, all your contact details, and it gives you an opportunity to upload about 5 documents altogether. So if you have more documents, you just submit more web forms. And then you get a confirmation that they have attached this to your file. And I do this probably 3 or 4 times a week with students because we have to update things. Sometimes transcripts are delayed. Sometimes students complete English programs and need to update IRCC with this. So please note that these are very successful. I use them all the time.
For
And
sure.
then I saw the first year fees can be paid into installments. A GIC is used for the SDS program. So if you're using a GIC, your tuition can be paid in installments. You can look at the fees schedule, but for visa purposes, immigration wants to see that you have tuition for 1 full year. So if your master's, yes, that's 3 terms. Undergrad is the 2 terms, and $10,000 for living expenses. So this could be shown with GIC, with scholarship, with bank accounts, but most recommended is with advanced tuition payments made because it shows how serious you are about studying with Lakehead and will help strengthen your application.
And then we have another question with regards to SDS, and I think I know the answer myself, but to clarify, is there a deadline to submit an SDS visa application?
There usually is a deadline that will show on the website, but normally if it doesn't meet that criteria, it's just automatically going to go into the regular stream. So SDS actually processes things a lot faster. So I don't know if there's really a deadline for it. I'm like, Jordan, do you have more information?
As far as I know, with SDS, the deadlines are more just kind of when you plan on arriving or when you plan on starting your studies. You need to then set your own deadlines to when you need to apply and have everything lined up. So obviously the IRCC website gives you full details as to what you will need to submit a successful SDS application and a full application at that, with keeping in mind, of course, the biometrics are to come when these offices start to open again.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
So the next question is with regards to another family one, so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, so same as before, of course, we invite you to invite your family to come with you. The fact that he has IT experience will probably be helpful in the job market here in Canada, but it's not relevant to the application. When you do a dependent open work permit, there's no work experience or anything required. It's strictly based on the fact that you have a study permit. So you'll be studying in Canada, and then his permit is tied to your status.
So the next question is a student from India, and they would like to apply for the visa, and based on the fact that visa centers are closed, can they do so without biometrics? Can they get a visa without biometrics? Is more the
Well,
question.
Devant, I'm hoping so. I hope you know that advisors across Canada are advocating for international students. And of course, we're saying, please just allow them to enter and get the approvals done, and then we'll worry about biometrics in the future. So, but right now, no, you still need that as a part of it. I have often seen immigration approve applications and then say you need to do a medical or you need to do something within 90 days. So maybe we might see something like that happen. But as of right now, it's still a step that's required. But still, like I said, you must apply for the study permit before you even get that request for biometrics. So please still submit your application and get it in that queue of applications.
For sure. And the next question is, are only study permits required to enter Canada, or are there any other required applications?
There's many ways to enter Canada. So the temporary ways are as a visitor, a student, or a worker. And then there's other ways, obviously, as a landed immigrant or permanent resident, refugee, and different processes that are not part of the study life. But if you plan to study, you should apply for the study permit in your home country. If you enter Canada as a visitor and then want to change your status to a student, you need to be kind of in a prerequisite program, or you need to show immigration why you did not just apply for a study permit. There's a thing called dual intent. So when you apply for something, but you want to do something else, immigration does not like that, and it can often cause refusals. So if you plan to study, we would say just apply for the study permit initially.
Awesome. So another question from Victoria. If I did travel to Canada in 2018, but I don't remember if I completed any biometrics, is it possible to find out if that has been recorded or if I did complete those biometrics?
Yeah, I would say definitely through the web form, you can ask IRCC. Usually they give you like a little barcode sticker when you go do it. So you would find it. And there's actually a fee for it. It's $85. So sometimes students are like, oh yeah, I remember going to the Visa Center, giving those fingerprints and paying the fee. So if you find that, then you'll know that you have it. But you can also, I'll give you guys the web form link. This is where you can also update your file and so forth to IRCC. So you can just send them a quick thing and say, hey, can you tell me if I've already done this? Web form, if I already have done this.
Awesome. And so the next question we have is, if I begin online classes in India, do I need to arrive before January in Canada? So that speaks more to the opening of borders and the requirements of actually when classes and how classes are going to be offered. So as we've already announced, Lakehead University will be implementing a primarily online and alternative delivery mode for this upcoming semester of fall 2020. It is simply too early to say what we will be offering in winter 2021 for delivery mode. Of course, our hopes are 100% to be in person, but like any proper university, we want to follow the best advice and guidelines set out by Health Canada, federal government, provincial government. And so we will abide by what they stipulate that we can do for offering courses in person. And so this question kind of speaks to the delivery mode in the following semester, and it's simply too early to say what that's going to be.
Yes.
As a part of your study permit application, a student would like to know if they must provide an IELTS or a English language test.
Yeah, so Arya, it's not, you don't need it for the study permit application with IRCC. IELTS is usually required to get admission into the university. So if you have unconditional admission, you don't need to provide any proof of English for your study permit application. The admission is sufficient for IRCC.
Awesome.
So the visa application process, I understand. I'm feeling for everybody in India. We have a coworker, and I know he keeps me updated. And I actually thought things were going very good for you for a long time, and then all of a sudden they had a little bit of leniency open up, and you guys saw a spike. So definitely thinking about everybody there and hoping everyone is safe. But knowing that the application is done online, so even though there's a lockdown, you should be able to still go online and start your study permit. We understand the biometric centers are closed. Again, we're just going to wait for further instruction and update from IRCC. IRCC has made it very clear that nobody will be refused for biometric waits, right? So they will have to come up with some solution. But as Jordan and I have already mentioned, we think that you should get your application in and be part of that queue so they know that there's so many students who are just waiting for these biometrics.
For sure. And the next question from Victoria is, if I haven't paid my tuition, is it possible to apply and get my visa?
You can apply for a study permit without, or study visa without tuition payments. We just encourage you to submit any deposits or tuition payments you've made in advance because it helps strengthen your application. You do have to show proof of finance, which I've mentioned can be in many different forms. It can be your bank account, it can be property and asset valuations. Sometimes it's your parents writing a statement or a loan letter, bank information, or if students have scholarships, they will include that. And you can put multiple documents into one file for your proof of finance. We just recommend the tuition payment. If your visa is refused, of course, there are refund policies and so forth. So there's not much harm into applying in advance. And in our experience, it does help with approval rates.
For sure. And I really like this next question because I think it's a common one and it kind of addresses the whole situation at hand. Currently, visa officers assessing study permit applications without biometric information?
So again, it's not required to submit your application. It's going to be a step that they want you to do for arrival. And to be honest, nobody's ever really been refused biometrics, right? Like it's just a step that they collect from you. So it's not like they collect your biometrics, and it's not like a medical exam where something could come up on your medical and that could cause you a refusal. Biometrics is just a simple step of collecting data. So of course, like I said, us advisors are saying maybe we should wait and just ask students to submit this when they arrive in the country. We provided many different solutions and options, but of course, this is all just discussion at this point. We are all going to just have to wait to see what IRCC says about this.
For sure. The next question we have is with regards to a student whose biometrics are currently processing. They would like to know if they're not able to complete those biometrics and not able to arrive in Canada for the September intake, will there be online classes for the fall intake? And the answer to that is it's more specific to your program and the courses that you will be completing. And so what I encourage you to do in the coming weeks, hopefully within a week, as soon as a week, we will have the course timetable published. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it should be out in the next few days. And the course timetable will actually clarify exactly how that course will be delivered. So whether it will be fully online, whether it's going to be synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, whether there is going to be any limited in-person opportunities, all that will be outlined in the course detailings, and that will speak to whether or not you'll be able to complete your course fully online for this upcoming fall. Of course, this still speaks to the fact that we do encourage you to have a study permit for when you start this fall. So the next question, Jen, is it possible to extend a deferral deadline since we are yet waiting for VACs to reopen and we are not sure whether to defer or not? And so I think that speaks, of course, more to admissions and deferring those the dates on their offer letter. So it's something that you can certainly do. You can reach out to your undergraduate team or your graduate admissions team, and you can request an extension. You would definitely need to explain the situation and explain why you're making that request. At this time, those deadlines are set, though. So if a deadline is approaching and you haven't heard back from us, I certainly encourage you to at least submit that deposit to hold your spot within that program, because if they do not have a seat filled and they pass that deadline, they will start going to the next pool of applicants and sending out offer letters. So we have another question. I haven't paid my tuition fee yet. Can I apply for study permit? I know you just answered that, but I'll get you to do it one more time as well.
Yes. So again, tuition payment is not mandatory, but it's recommended for your study permit. If not, you can have the other forms of proof of finance.
Awesome. So then another question, as a Canadian citizen who studied overseas in India, is there any requirements for study permits after having received a letter of acceptance from a Canadian university?
Absolutely not. As a Canadian citizen, you do not require a study permit to study at Lakehead.
Perfect. The next question, is it possible for someone who is 45 years old to do a master's program in a Canadian university? The person is an engineer and has a master's degree in MBA. Yes, absolutely. There are no age restrictions on our master's programs. It simply is you submit the application, and if you are in the top of the candidate pool and you're a great applicant, then you will most likely receive that offer from us. Of course, you'll have to submit all the required documentation, your full academic history, and more. If you would like to connect with us and to connect with our admissions teams in graduate studies, I encourage you also to join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time to meet up with our graduate admissions team, and you can ask questions about that application process. So there is another question, is there any online process for visa application? So I know we at the very beginning, you kind of walked through the basics of it. Could you do a quick run through just verbally of what the online application is like, Jen?
Sure. And even like in that resource folder I've shared, I actually have a video from step by step opening an account, answering the questions and uploading all the documents. So please go through that if you want more details. But you will start an account online, and then you will start an application to come to Canada. The first question asks, what do you want to do in Canada? So you either pick visit, study, or work. So for our purposes, you are going to pick study, and then answer the questions accordingly. Once you answer all the questions, it's going to bring you to a checklist or uploading page where you fill out an application form, upload supporting documents, and then you pay a fee. And then you will just keep monitoring that application online until you see the approval, or again, the biometric request, and wait for that to open.
Awesome. So the next question, what if the visa approval is late and comes after September? What process does that, how does that happen? What should students do in that case?
So you'll have to be mindful and just kind of thinking about dates and so forth right now. Just considering your options, speak to admissions. We know that there may be some visas pending. Like normally before COVID, students, we always say, if you have the visa approval within the first 2 weeks of classes, we still ask you to come and arrive and so forth. So I know this is a big question. A lot of people are wondering what to happen. I still encourage you to submit your application, and let's see what IRCC is going to announce over July and August for students who are in this situation.
Alrighty, so then the next question we have is from a student actually who might be interested in applying for fall 2021 for undergraduate studies. They would like to know when they should start their immigration process. So very ahead of the game. Applications for fall 2021 typically open in late September, early October of the previous year, or the full year in advance. So those applications you can hope to see open in a couple of months here. And then once you've submitted all of your documents for that application and you receive an offer letter or a letter of acceptance from Lakehead University, you can actually begin your visa process at that time. So even if you have your conditional offer letter or an unconditional offer letter, again, we encourage you as soon as you receive that to start your visa processing. And then as you receive maybe updated information from us as the institution providing that offer letter, you can of course use the web form that Jen's been mentioning a few times to update said documents.
Perfect.
So the next question from Victoria, Jen, did you want to read that one?
Yeah, so the cost of the study is funding for the stay. So it's annual tuition on the application form. So annual tuition is close to 21,000 or whatever it is, and then you would put 10,000 for your living expenses. The other I always leave blank, and then the funds available, a little hint, should at least equal what your expenses are, or at least be more, because you definitely don't want to tell IRCC you have less money than what you need for your studies. So generally it's around $30,000. Immigration is looking 30 plus the 10 for your tuition, or 10 for living expenses. That's what you would put on that form. The next question I see is again around cost. So for your master's, make sure that you're just looking at the tuition fee schedule to find out how much it is. For the SDS program, you do have to get the Guaranteed Investment Certificate, GIC. So please just go through the finance part of the SDS part. I can even share that again with the IRCC page, just to make sure that you have the exact requirements. Because it's not like you can just give anything for SDS stream. There are specific documents for finance, which obviously is why it makes it a little bit easier for people to apply. And it's also only applicable to certain countries.
Awesome. And so the next question we have is from Karan. It says, I have not received any updates on my application. When will I be updated? So if you're referring to your application to Lakehead University, I encourage you to connect directly with your admissions team, whether you're in undergraduate studies or graduate studies. You can connect directly with that team. There would be definitely emails from our teams communicating anything that we might need. You can also refer to your MyInfo account to see if there's any missing documentation that we require for your application. If you're referring to an application with the VACs and IRCC, Jen, could you maybe speak to, do they need to contact anyone? Is there a way to stay updated on their application or check like a live status?
If you apply through the online portal, you should just log in and you'll be able to see your application move through the steps. So if it says that it's in process, you know that you're just waiting. Or if you've received the biometric request, you know that you're just waiting. For the visa centers, they don't really have access to your application, so it's best to go directly with IRCC. If you see something funny in your online profile or something you don't understand, you can use that web form. Or if you haven't had an update and like sometimes it's been months and we're like, what's happening? The approval date should have been approved. You can send an IRCC web form, but please note the processing date. So if you apply for a study permit and you're in India and it's been 8 weeks and you send them an application saying what's happening with my application, send in an email asking what's happening with your application, they are going to send back to you saying it is 11 weeks for processing, and they do not provide any update until they're past that processing date. So that front page where it tells you like what day they're working on is quite important for you.
Awesome. So we have another question. A student who's already applied for their study permit, they do not have their loan letter or their proof of funds or their biometrics due to the lockdown. Will this delay the study permit or affect their fall semester in any way?
Well, no, because we know that classes can be offered online. Again, we know that there are delays with the visa processing because of biometrics, and we will wait to see what IRCC does for the weeks to come. But again, we encourage you to get that application in, so at least your application is being processed in the meantime.
Awesome. And we have another great question. So if an international student has applied for a permanent resident application already through a family application, but they need to start university, say, for this upcoming fall, before the permanent residency application has been approved or has been processed, how should they proceed with that?
So you can have an application in for permanent residency and then start a new application for temporary residency. In the application, when you apply for a study permit, it's going to ask you, have you ever applied for permanent residency, or do you have an application in process? So you would answer yes to that, and then you would include some details about that application with your study permit. So immigration is aware that you're looking to gain permanent residency, but in the meantime, you'd like to come temporarily to study.
Another question, do children below 10 years old require a study visa to be able to go to school well in Canada?
No, for the elementary level, they don't require it. They can use a visitor visa to be studying in like the elementary, which would be from JK, so from age 3 or 4 to age, I think, 12, and then on to high school, or maybe even 14, sorry. But once they are in senior secondary school, so that's like grade 9 to grade 12, so teenagers definitely need to have study permits.
Awesome. And then another student from Pakistan, they have received a full scholarship for their PhD, and they've applied for their visa application with the family. Should they proceed through SDS or non-SDS?
It's really your choice. Like, we don't really tell students what to apply through. You can just go through the stream. I mean, you can always apply through the SDS stream, and if you don't meet the criteria, it will just go through the regular stream. So it's your choice.
Awesome. And I just want to note we do have about 5 minutes left on today's session, and I know we have plenty of questions still, a little over 30, so we certainly won't be able to answer all of them. But I know that many of these questions have been duplicates, so I do hope that we've addressed the majority of them on a broad scope. If you do want to connect with us still, you can reach out to us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca or on our social media channels. We'll be happy to address more questions. I also want to encourage everyone, if you look to your screen now, if you visit lakeheadu.ca/about/coronavirus, that is our main webpage where we have our frequently asked questions section. And lots of these answers are already stipulated on there. So whether it's questions regarding deferring your offer, or starting this fall without a study permit, what the implications might mean, those sorts of questions have already been populated by our senior management team. So I certainly encourage everyone to check those out as well.
Yes, thanks everyone. And I think that you may see more sessions like this to come in the future. So please just check your email, and looking forward to connecting with you guys, helping. I understand it's an uncertain time for all of us, but know that we're here to help you navigate this, and of course, accept you into our Lakehead life. So congratulations, Thunderwolves, and we'll see you soon.
We have a few more minutes still, so
Yes,
if we want to do some questions, I'll still flip over to the Q&A really quickly here.
Yeah, I'll kind of try to quickly go through some if you want, and try to just see if there's new ones coming in.
For sure. So, yeah. If you wanna do that, Jen. The first one I'll ask is the study permit a separate application that I need other than my visa in order to pursue my studies there?
So the study visa will come together in your first application. So when you apply for a study permit, once it's approved, you get a notice to mail your passport. And that sticker, again, is just used for entering the country, and the permit will actually be issued when you arrive. And the permit allows you to study, the sticker allows you to enter. So you always need to have a valid TRV sticker or an ETA, electronic travel authorization for visa exempt countries, to enter Canada.
Awesome. So then another question: what should I do if till last date of registration my visa application is under process? So that's referring to when registration actually closes for courses this upcoming fall. And so if you have not received your visa, there's different implications based on the length of study that you'll be completing at Lakehead. Jen, could you maybe highlight the difference between maybe a student studying a 1-year graduate program versus a 4-year undergraduate program, and starting your program online without a study permit?
For sure. So I know that in an upcoming question too, they asked about the postgraduate work permit duration. So students who study for 4 terms, so 2-year programs, will be eligible to apply for a 3-year open work permit when they graduate. And this is called the postgraduate work permit. And to be eligible, you need to graduate and have a valid study permit. So when they're looking at the terms of study, if you're a master's student, you need to complete 16 to 23 months to be eligible for that 3-year work permit. And IRC See has made it very clear that they want you to have study permit approval for the time to be counted towards your postgraduate work permit that you're studying. So if you receive study permit approval and you decide to stay home and take your classes online in the fall, that is okay. IRC See has already noted you can take 50% of your program. So if you're in 2 years, that would be two or 3 semesters, depending if you're graduate or undergrad. And you still will qualify for your open work permit upon graduation. If your study permit is not approved, but you will be studying in a program that is going to be more than 4 terms, so for example, undergraduate programs, or maybe you're studying in the English language program for the fall term, this is fine. To be honest, the study permit approval is not as significant as if you're in a shorter program, as that 1 semester won't really make a difference. You will still be studying for another 6 terms or more, so you will still qualify for your open work permit, even if you didn't start classes on campus in Canada until, say, fall 2021. You took 2 terms online, it would not affect your postgraduate work permit. Of course, we have to be mindful and thinking about everything, dates for attending classes, and obviously the visa approval. And I know this is the $1 million question. What do I do if it's still processing? And we are looking for clarification from IRC See. And I promise, as much as we get updates, we will share them with you guys, because we want you to be making informed decisions as well.
For sure. And I know we're right down to the hour now, so I'll pose one last question, and I think this is a really good general question. Can I study in Lakehead with a general type of visa, or maybe you could clarify exactly what visas students should be applying for, what the names are, all that sort of stuff.
So again, there are 3 different temporary statuses to come in the country. One is a visitor visa, one is a work permit, and the other one is a study permit. So anyone who plans to study for 6 months or longer needs to have a Canadian study permit. And we say visa, so there's a visitor visa, which allows you to just be in the country and visit, but there's also a temporary residency visa, which is the stamping in your passport. So no matter what application you do, you will have that stamping in your passport along with your permit. So if you are applying for a study permit, it automatically is going to come together when you come to Canada. But again, for 6 months or more of studies, and again, if you want the studies to be counted in your work permit time when you graduate, you should have study permit approval.
Awesome. Well, I know we still have quite a few open questions. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of today's session. Once again, I'll reiterate the emails on the screen. They're a great resource too. So if you would like to submit a question or get more answers from us, for sure, you can email us directly on one of those email accounts. And to anyone who's watching this as a recording, again, if you have any questions, you can always comment on the video. We'll receive the notification. We'll be happy to address that question or at least connect you with the proper person at Lakehead. Otherwise, my final reminder is something I like to always do, remind everyone to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Those of you joining from China, we're also in Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. Another great way to explore Lakehead University, get to know what the facilities, the surrounding environment look like. You can take a virtual campus tour. All you have to do is head over to lakeheadu.ca/tours. It's a great resource, and I certainly encourage you to do it. There's no appointments necessary. You can complete it at your own pace. It's definitely something I know students love to check out before they arrive. Without further ado, though, thank you, Jen, for joining us. And I certainly think that with today's success of the session, we'll hope to see you back on another special live in the near future.
For sure. Thanks, everybody, for listening in. Lots of good questions. And again, I look forward to helping you through this transition and throughout your whole time with Lakehead. So.
Awesome. Thanks again, and bye for now.